For far too long, Vladimir Putin has clung to the belief that Russia would emerge victorious in the war with Ukraine. The hope was for a swift triumph, yet that dream has unraveled. The expectation was that Ukraine would be worn down, but reality has proven otherwise. Now, in Putin's eyes, the prize is the Donbas territory. Yet, if Finland has anything to say about it, even that will remain out of reach. In a resounding rebuttal, Finland has dealt Putin a significant blow, sending a clear message: his authority will never gain official recognition. The Kremlin has been rocked by these statements, but there may still be a fragile lifeline for Putin in the form of US President Donald Trump. On October 18, the BBC broadcasted insights from Finnish President Alexander Stubb, who categorically stated that Finland will never recognize Crimea as part of Russia. This is the peninsula Putin annexed back in 2014, occupied for over a decade, but that reality seems irrelevant to Stubb. Since the annexation, Finland has gradually reduced its dependency on Russian trade, as reported by the Center for European Reform. They revealed an interesting trend. In 2012, Russia accounted for 18% of Finland's imports. By 2015, that figure plummeted to 11%. Although it momentarily rose to 14%, by 2022, shortly after Putin initiated his invasion, the imports sank to an alarming low of 8%. Finland has made it clear through these dwindling trade figures that they mean business. Stubb expressed this sentiment explicitly, reinforcing that not only Crimea is off the table, but any land Russia attempts to claim amid its aggression will also be rejected. He specifically highlighted the regions of Luhansk and Donetsk and the Donbas, currently under 70% Russian occupation, stating firmly that the land rightfully belongs to Ukraine and must be determined solely by them. So why does Putin obsess over Donbas? The allure lies in its strategic and economic significance, including vast mineral and agricultural resources. Mark Afikanshin from the Center for Strategic and International Studies noted that the region was once highly industrialized but has since fallen on hard times. Its farmland represents some of the best in the world, and its mineral wealth is a treasure that Putin seeks to exploit. Currently, Russia controls about 40% of Ukraine's metal resources, and Donetsk is home to significant lithium deposits. With the potential economic value soaring to $12 trillion just from hard coal reserves, it's easy to see why Putin views Donbas as a golden opportunity to revitalize Russia's economy post-war. Yet strategic advantages abound as well, with the port in Mariupol ensuring year-round access to the Black Sea, an essential asset for naval positioning. However, the most compelling motivator may be the region's symbolic importance. A large portion of its population speaks Russian, further fueling Putin's narrative that the land should belong to Russia. If Ukraine were to cede control over Donbas, it would play right into Putin's hands, allowing him to claim victory while overlooking Ukrainian sovereignty. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been unwavering, declaring he will not relinquish Donbas to achieve peace. Finland's President Stubb has thrown his voice into the conversation, asserting that any attempt by Russia to annex parts of Ukraine will be met with immediate illegitimacy. Along with that firm stance, he also advocates for Ukraine's accession to the European Union and NATO, ensuring that once the war concludes, Ukraine will remain independent and sovereign, bathing in the protection of Europe. The prospect of Ukraine joining the EU presents a tantalizing prospect for its citizens, stirring hope amid the turmoil. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen heralded Ukraine's potential membership, declaring that Europe stands with Ukrainians fighting for a better future. However, could these aspirations become complicated by bureaucratic delays? How quickly can the EU shepherd Ukraine into its fold, and what does it mean for Russia, especially given Putin's denials of objecting to EU membership yet opposing NATO? As these geopolitical equations shift, one question lingers: when the dust settles, will Ukraine emerge as a full member of the EU and possibly NATO, or will it remain suspended in uncertainty? Only time will reveal the answer, but the stakes are undeniably high. Every decision could reshape the contour of Europe for generations to come. Finland's trade reductions have been a clear signal of its stance against Russian aggression, dropping to an alarming low of 8% in 2022. The very year when the invasion of Ukraine unfolded. Finnish President Alexander Stubb made it unequivocally clear that Finland would never recognize any Russian claim over Crimea. But it doesn't stop there. Stubb further emphasized that the same principle applies to any territory Russia seeks to seize amid the ongoing conflict. Starting with the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, which are crucial for both sides, Stubb pinpointed a sobering fact: Russia now occupies approximately 70% of Donetsk and nearly all of Luhansk. Yet, what does occupation truly mean? According to Stubb, mere invasion doesn't grant ownership. The fate of these lands lies firmly in the hands of the Ukrainians, and no amount of Kremlin rhetoric can change that reality. Putin's hunger for Donbass isn't just about territorial expansion, it's also about wealth. Al Jazeera has outlined the strategic and economic significance of this region. With a history of industrial prowess, Donbass appeal has severely diminished since the Cold War, yet it remains rich in fertile farmland and essential minerals. Putin envisions revitalizing this industrial heartland of the past while transforming its agricultural prowess. And let's not overlook the financial allure. Donbass holds a cache of valuable resources, minerals and precious metals coveted by the Kremlin. Currently, about 40% of Ukraine's mineral riches sit under Russian control. The Shevchenko field in Donetsk, one of Ukraine's largest lithium deposits, is a prime target. The Economic Times estimates that Donbass harbors around 56% of Ukraine's hard coal reserves, valued at a staggering $12 trillion. So what does all this mean for Russia's grand ambitions? The allure of Donbass isn't merely economic, it's vital for Putin's narrative. By controlling this region, he aims to bolster a sense of legitimacy in his vision for Russia. The stakes are not only about territory, they're intertwined with a narrative claiming historical and emotional ties. But with Finland's unyielding resolve and statements echoing clarity, can Putin's ambitions truly come to fruition, or is he steered toward an ever-narrowing corner? In the heart of Eastern Europe, a fierce battle rages between Russia and Ukraine, filled with tension and geopolitical stakes that send shivers down the spine of the world. The Donbass region stands as a desolate backdrop, home to precious resources, a battleground of identities, and a chess piece in a grand game of power. Amid this turmoil, two leaders emerge: Ukraine's President, Volodymyr Zelensky, and Finland's President, Alexander Stubb, each armed with resolve and striking words. As conflicts continue to unfurl, a staggering truth lies hidden beneath the surface: the Donbass is not merely a geographical region, it's a goldmine of wealth and resources. With an astonishing valuation of $12 trillion in hard coal reserves, alongside vast mineral wealth, Russia's ambitions are clear. It envisions this battlefield as the key to restoring its crumbling economy, positioning its navy for strategic dominance in the Black Sea, and leveraging the symbolic bonds connecting Russian speakers in the region to justify its claims. In Donetsk, nearly 75% of residents speak Russian, and the figure in Luhansk is just under 69%. This linguistic majority has become a cornerstone of Russia's narrative, feeding the narrative that these lands rightfully belong to it. Yet, behind this facade of justification lies a deeper question: what happens to Ukraine in a world where vital territories slip through its fingers? Zelensky remains steadfast, vowing never to surrender Donbass in exchange for fleeting peace. His determination resonates like a battle cry, echoing through the hearts of many who resist. Meanwhile, Stubb, echoing this sentiment, has issued a stark warning to the Kremlin: Finland will never recognize any annexation of Ukrainian territory, making it clear that this land belongs to Ukraine and Ukraine alone. This bold proclamation sends shockwaves through the Kremlin, and with every passing moment, the specter of conflict intensifies. As political maneuvers unfold, Stubb pushes for Ukraine's membership in the European Union and NATO, a move that could shift the balance of power in the region. He paints a vivid vision of a future where Ukraine thrives as a sovereign state, free from the grips of Russian encroachment. With each statement, a provocative question hangs in the air: can Ukraine truly retain its independence against such overwhelming odds? This leads to the inevitable cliffhanger: as the stakes rise, will the world stand idly by as the struggle for Donbass escalates, or will it galvanize forces to ensure Ukraine's place in the European family? The potential for alliances and the stirring of ancient fears create an atmosphere thick with anticipation. A fight for identity, for territory, and perhaps for the very soul of a nation hangs in the balance. As this tale unfolds, the earth beneath Donbass trembles, echoing a question that reverberates across borders: who will emerge victorious in this high-stakes game of power and principle? In a world where power and territorial claims often collide, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky remains resolute. He has repeatedly asserted that he will not surrender the Donbas region to Russia in exchange for a false peace. Enter Finland's President Alexander Stubb, who boldly declared that any annexation of Donbas not initiated solely by Ukraine will face the unwavering rejection of Finland. This statement sends a clear message to Putin: the Russian leader cannot expect to gain legitimacy from this process, nor can he hope to win favor with Finland or the broader Western community. This was Stubb's first firm declaration against Putin, a slap to the face of an already precarious Kremlin. But Stubb wasn't finished yet. He followed up with another powerful message: Ukraine must become a member of the European Union, and ideally, NATO. This vision is not just a hope, it's a necessity to ensure Ukraine retains its sovereignty and independence once the dust of war settles. As Stubb pointedly expressed, this membership symbolizes everything that Ukrainians are currently fighting for. Interestingly, Putin has attempted to appear indifferent to Ukraine's EU aspirations, claiming he has no issue with Ukraine joining the bloc. Yet, this statement raises eyebrows, given the historical context of Russia's military actions against Ukraine. While he superficially accepts Ukraine's EU pursuits, his stance on NATO remains starkly different, creating a sharp division that reveals his true intentions. So, what does this mean for the future of Ukraine? If Finland stands firm alongside Ukraine, could they reshape the battlefield into one of diplomatic alliances rather than military conquests? The stakes are immense as Zelensky and Stubb press for a future united with Europe, while Putin continues to lurk in the shadows, hoping to steer the narrative back to Russia's control. How long can this tension simmer before it escalates into something more explosive? Time will reveal the answers, but one fact remains certain: the fight for Donbas is not just a struggle for land but a battle for the heart and soul of a nation yearning for its rightful place in the world. Vladimir Putin has long believed that Russia would swiftly dominate the Ukraine conflict. What was anticipated to be a quick victory is morphing into a prolonged struggle, with the Kremlin reeling as its original objectives crumble. Putin now aims for Ukraine to concede parts of Donbas. Yet, with Finland stepping in, the landscape is shifting dramatically. Their stance is clear: they will never recognize Crimea as Russian territory, a message that strikes at the heart of Putin's ambitions. On October 18, Finnish President Alexander Stubb made a bold declaration during a BBC interview, asserting that Finland would never acknowledge Russia's claims. This lone statement reverberates across the Kremlin, shattering Putin's illusion of legitimacy in the region. The grim reality of dwindling trade between Finland and Russia underscores Stubb's resolve. Finland's imports from Russia plummeted from 18% in 2012 to just 8% by 2022, largely due to the impact of the conflict in Ukraine. Stubb's clarity did not stop there. He outlined Finland's stance on the occupation of Luhansk and Donetsk, emphasizing that territory seized through aggression does not equate to ownership. The decision about these regions rests solely with Ukraine, a powerful reminder to Putin that aggression will not tilt the scales of legitimacy in his favor. His mindset, consumed by the need to solidify gains in Donbas, might lead him to overlook the steadfast determination of Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, who has firmly rejected any notion of ceding territory. Donbas holds immense strategic, economic, and symbolic value for Putin. The region, rich with industrial potential and precious minerals, has been seen by the Kremlin as pivotal for Russia's future economic revival after the conflict. Control over Donbas would not only bolster Putin's narrative but also offer Russia a strategic foothold in the Black Sea, especially with vital ports like Mariupol in play. As Stubb voices a growing consensus within Finland and beyond, every inch of Ukraine belongs to Ukrainians, it highlights the critical question of Ukraine's future. Will they integrate fully into European structures? Discussions surrounding Ukraine's membership in the European Union have gained steam, with December 2023 seeing the EU open formal negotiations. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, expressed hope for Ukraine's accession by 2030, calling it a collective dream for Europe. However, the path to EU membership isn't without barriers. Critics might question whether institutions are genuinely prepared to usher Ukraine into the fold. Yet, Ukraine's strong will and progress suggest a favorable trajectory. Von der Leyen emphasized the admiration for Ukraine's resolve, believing their efforts could even expedite the process. The stakes have never been higher, teetering on a precipice where ambition clashes with geopolitical realities. As Stubbs' words echo across borders, they serve as a stark reminder that the will of nations can redefine the landscape, posing electric questions about what tomorrow will hold for Ukraine. Will they embrace a future entwined with Europe? Or will the ghosts of ambition overshadow aspirations for peace and sovereignty? The choices ahead are monumental, and the world watches intently. Ukraine stands on the brink of joining the European Union, a monumental journey that could culminate before the end of this decade. The resolve to make this happen is palpable, with the European Commission President acknowledging Ukraine's merit-based progress. If they maintain this pace, their accession could even come sooner than 2030. But let's pause and ponder, 2030 isn't just around the corner. It raises real questions. Is the EU genuinely committed to embracing Ukraine? Yet, these doubts fade when we consider the intricate bureaucracy of the EU. A 6-year timeline from application to membership is surprisingly swift. Historically, the average duration for EU membership applications stretches to 9 years. Thus, Ukraine would break the mold by racing ahead of that pace. However, while EU membership seems plausible, NATO membership presents a murkier picture. Finland's President Stubb champions Ukraine's bid to join NATO, bolstering them with strong support. But lurking in the shadows is Putin, vocally opposing any such ambition. In a revealing moment during an August meeting with President Zelensky at the White House, former U.S. President Donald Trump suggested a path to resolving the conflict in Ukraine, one that excludes NATO membership from any peace discussions. This comment sends shockwaves through the dialogue surrounding NATO expansion. Consider the stakes. America is a titan within NATO, wielding immense military power, backed by a staggering arsenal of over 5,000 nuclear weapons. As documented by the Arms Control Association, the U.S. holds a critical position in military matters. Analysts like Doug Bandow from the Cato Institute have noted a persistent no from multiple U.S. administrations regarding Ukraine's NATO aspirations. Trump's recent stance echoes past refusals from both Barack Obama and Joe Biden, creating a daunting atmosphere for Ukraine as it seeks allies in its quest for security and sovereignty. This tale unfolds against a backdrop of geopolitical tension, where the future of Ukraine hangs in the balance. The question remains, can true change emerge in such a complicated web of alliances and dissent? Will the EU's embrace be strong enough to ward off Russia's shadow, or is Ukraine destined to navigate an uncertain future? The answers lie ahead, waiting to be revealed. For many years, Vladimir Putin has clung to the belief that victory in the Ukraine conflict was inevitable. Initially projected as a swift triumph, the reality has turned out to be vastly different. The objective to weaken Ukraine has not materialized as anticipated. Now, Putin's sights are set on a mere fragment of what he once envisioned, convincing Ukraine to concede territory in the Donbas region. But even that ambition is slipping through his fingers, particularly through the resolute stance of Finland. Recently, Finnish President Alexander Stubb delivered an unmistakable rebuke to Putin's aspirations, sending shockwaves through the Kremlin. His message was clear: Finland will never recognize Crimea as an integral part of Russia, despite Putin's annexation back in 2014. This diplomatic slap stings even more when considering Finland's decreasing reliance on Russian trade over the past decade, a trend underscored by stark statistics indicating a plunge in imports from Russia from 18% in 2012 to a mere 8% in 2022. Stubb's sharp words extended beyond Crimea, aimed directly at the heart of Putin's ambitions in the Donbas, specifically regions like Luhansk and Donetsk, now under heavy Russian control. These territories, which Putin covets for their wealth and strategic significance, are fundamentally disputed. According to Stubb, the choice of land is not for Russia to decide but ultimately rests in Ukrainian hands. His proclamation serves as a powerful reminder to Putin: these are not yours to take. But what lies beneath this tension? Analysts highlight that control over Donbas would not only afford Russia significant economic benefits, home to fertile lands and rich mineral resources, but also an essential strategic position. To Putin, this region is both a treasure trove and a piece of historical narrative woven into Russia's identity. With roughly 75% of Donetsk's residents speaking Russian, the Kremlin's justifications for claiming the land echoes through propaganda and history, misleadingly suggesting that these areas are rightfully Russian. The stakes are high. If Putin continues his aggressive pursuit of Donbas, he risks igniting a greater conflict. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky remains resolute, declaring he will not surrender any territory. President Stubb amplifies this resolve, firmly asserting that any annexation of Donbas without Ukraine's consent will be met with a Finnish cry of illegitimacy, rendering any Russian claim void. Moreover, Stubb raises a pivotal point: Ukraine's future within the European Union and NATO. For Finland, supporting Ukraine's EU candidacy is vital. The reality is that integration into these alliances would offer Ukraine a shield against further Russian aggression, complicating Putin's aspirations. Yet, the question remains: will the West react decisively enough to thwart Russia's ambitions? As time unfolds, discussions about NATO membership become more charged. Historically, Ukraine has received repeated denials from U.S. leaders regarding NATO inclusion, with past presidents hesitant to draw a direct line with Russia. Despite Bush's initial push for Ukraine's NATO membership, it seems this very support has spiraled into the chaos witnessed over the last 2 decades, culminating in the current conflict. But what if Ukraine emerges from this war intact and ready for NATO? Would Putin, angry and desperate, launch another offensive, risking direct conflict with NATO forces? The uncertainty hangs heavy in the air, presenting a troubling dilemma. For Stubb, Finland has already joined NATO since the onset of the invasion, marking a pivotal shift in regional security dynamics. By vocalizing support for Ukraine's anticipated NATO accession, he delivers a critical message to Putin: Finland stands firmly with Ukraine. This unwavering stance signifies not just diplomatic support, but a united front against further Russian encroachment. The tension between ambition and reality grows. In the face of international challenges, will Putin's aspirations crumble, or will he seek to reignite conflict? As the unfolding saga continues, the fate of Ukraine and the broader geopolitical landscape hangs precariously in the balance. Will history remember this moment as a turning point, or merely another chapter in a relentless struggle? As events unfold, one thing remains clear: the conflict is far from over. The air was thick with tension, like the distant rumble of thunder foretelling a storm. Remember how Finland's President Stubb shocked the world by pledging unwavering support? He vowed Ukraine would join NATO, smashing a defiant second slap right across Putin's face. Imagine the sting, raw, unrelenting, like the crack of a whip echoing through the Kremlin halls. It humiliated Russia's leader, making him squirm in his gilded chair, the weight of rejection pressing down like an invisible hand. But why would Finland gamble on such boldness? Could Putin eye Finland next, turning the tables in a twisted twist of fate that haunts the region? What terrifying secret fears drive this Nordic nation to stand so fiercely? Listen closely, as the shadows reveal a chilling truth. Perhaps Stubb fears the nightmare of history repeating itself. That's the chilling thought echoing among Finland's people. Imagine the icy grip of winters gone by, where the scent of pine forests mixes with the metallic tang of old wounds. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation reported this grim reality on October 18. Finns whisper about their land's geography and bloody past with Russia, their hearts pounding as they dread Putin's shadow creeping closer. Finland once bled, losing 10% of its precious territory to Russia in the 1939 Winter War Peace Treaty, a betrayal that scarred the soul of a nation. Feel that shiver, the cold earth underfoot etched with memories of fallen comrades. Ukraine mirrors that pain, and Stubb's words roar like a battle cry: Finland won't let it happen again. They demand Ukraine's full sovereignty. Bound by EU and NATO ties, to shield against Putin's grasping claws. Picture the double-slap landing square, the Kremlin trembling like leaves in a gale, shaken by Finland's resolute stand. But hold your breath, what if Ukraine's salvation hinges on whispers from across the Atlantic? As Finland's voice thunders, Stubb himself admits its relative softness. In the vast theater of global power, Finland is but a solo echo. Yet Stubb pointedly named one man as the key: Donald Trump, the wildcard who could shatter Putin's illusions. Suppose that lifeline slips away? Could Trump's whispers turn into the ultimate betrayal, letting Putin claim victory in the murk? The tension mounts, as recounted in his BBC Radio 4 interview. Stubb confided that during golf outings with Trump, he warned him directly: Putin is untrustworthy, a serpent in gilded robes. Hear the whoosh of the swing, the thud of the ball landing firm, mirroring the stakes of nations. Stubb urged, "We need the stick, not the carrot. Force Russia to the table," he declared, "no sweet bargains to lull them. Not acquiescence, but pressure so fierce it bends steel." Trump's hand alone wields that power. Imagine the crunch of grass underfoot, the salty breeze carrying hopes of peace. Will Trump rise, or will darkness prevail in this high-stakes game? What unthinkable gamble awaits if he fails? Suspicions linger, twisting like smoke in the wind. Putin's empty denials hang heavy. He claims indifference to Ukraine's EU path, yet his invasion screams differently. Breathe in that deceit, sharp and acrid, like fog masking true intent. Words may deceive, as actions reveal the abyss. Suppose Trump wields his influence? Could a shocking ultimatum force Putin to retreat, or will Finland stand crumble under unseen pressures? Feel the pulse racing. What dark curtain will lift next in this epic clash? Vladimir Putin has been under a delusion. He firmly believes that Russia would swiftly emerge victorious in its war against Ukraine. The expectation was for a quick subjugation of Ukraine, yet months later, that dream lies in tatters. Instead of wearing Ukraine down, the opposite has occurred, and Putin now finds himself backed into a corner. His new goal? Convincing Ukraine to cede territory in Donbass. But here's the kicker: if Finland has a say in this, Putin may not even get that. Finland has thrown down the gauntlet, delivering a powerful message to Putin, a message that suggests his authority will never be acknowledged. The Kremlin has trembled at this blunt declaration, but perhaps there's still a lifeline for Putin in the form of US President Donald Trump. On October 18, Finnish President Alexander Stubb appeared on BBC Radio 4 and unequivocally stated that Finland would never recognize Crimea as part of Russia. Despite Russia's occupation of the peninsula since its annexation in 2014, Stubb made it clear that this reality means nothing to Finland. Finland's trade with Russia has steadily diminished since the Crimean annexation. Imports dropped from roughly 18% in 2012 to an all-time low of 8% in 2022, right at the moment of Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Stubb's words echoed Finland's long-held position, emphasizing that it would never condone Russia's actions in Crimea or any other territory seized due to the current conflict, including Donetsk and Luhansk. But here's where it gets even more riveting. While Russia currently controls a significant portion of Donetsk and Luhansk, Stubb reasserted that these lands belong solely to Ukraine. It's a daring stance, signaling that the true power over these territories lies in the hands of the Ukrainians, not the Kremlin. The desperation in Putin's ranks is palpable as he yearns for control of Donbass, a region rich in resources and strategic importance. The Donbass area offers literally a gold mine of economic opportunity, from fertile farmland to vast reserves of minerals. After years of industrial decline post-Cold War, Putin imagines revitalizing this former industrial powerhouse to cushion Russia's economy post-war. Yet, it isn't just the wealth that draws him in. It's also the land's symbolic significance, where the majority speak Russian, fueling Putin's narrative that these regions rightfully belong to Russia. But the stakes have never been higher. Should Putin manage to annex Donbass, he could claim legitimacy for his war efforts, and Ukrainian incursions would leave the beleaguered country with a far longer border with Russia than before. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has flatly refused to surrender any territory, and now Stubb has aligned Finland's stance with Ukraine's uncompromising position. If that weren't enough, Stubb has initiated calls for Ukraine to join the European Union and NATO, ensuring its sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity. This bold assertion adds a layer of urgency to the situation. After all, is there a pathway out of this conflict? With European leaders leaning toward embracing Ukraine, the question looms larger than ever: can peace in Ukraine coexist with Russia's ambitions? Meanwhile, the spotlight turns to Trump. Is he a puppet master capable of exerting the necessary pressure on Putin to negotiate for peace? The intrigue deepens as Trump and Putin are set for a meeting in Hungary, a location chosen for its evasion of international law implications, given Hungary's withdrawal from the International Criminal Court. As this dramatic chapter unfolds, will Trump genuinely push for peace, or will he trade concessions, playing into Putin's grand designs? With echoes of uncertainty in the air, this potential meeting carries the weight of history. Could Trump's anticipated concession of Ukrainian territory be the leverage that ends this bitter conflict? The story is not over yet. The world watches, waiting to discover what lies ahead. For far too long, Vladimir Putin has believed that victory in the Ukraine war was within his grasp. Initially envisioned as a swift operation, the reality has diverged dramatically from his expectations. Rather than wearing down Ukraine, the conflict has become a protracted struggle. In Putin's eyes, winning would mean securing territories in Donbass, but even that victory eludes him. With Finland stepping up to challenge Russia's ambitions, the Kremlin now faces uncertainty like never before. In a striking declaration, Finnish President Alexander Stubb made it clear, Finland will never acknowledge Russia's occupation of Crimea. This bold statement rattled the Kremlin, as it directly refutes Putin's narrative. The country's trade relations with Russia have diminished significantly since the annexation of Crimea in 2014, with imports plummeting to a mere 8% in 2022. Finland has shown its dedication to turning away from Russia, making Stubb's remarks all the more impactful. But Stubb didn't stop there. He further asserted that any attempt by Russia to claim regions like Luhansk and Donetsk following the invasion will be met with resolute opposition from Finland. The message is explicit: decisions about these territories lie solely with Ukraine, not with an invading force. This unwavering stance signifies that Putin's aspirations are unrecognized and will not be tolerated. The motivations behind Putin's push for Donbass are multifaceted. Economically, the region is rich in resources, precious metals, minerals, and fertile farmland that could benefit Russia immensely. Strategically, control over Donbass would grant Russia dominance over the Black Sea, alongside the annexed Crimea. Symbolically, it's a matter of identity for many native Russian speakers residing in the area. For Putin, securing Donbass would not only solidify power but also lend credibility to his justifications for the invasion. Yet Ukraine is adamant. President Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly stated that giving up Donbass is not an option. As Finland supports Ukraine's sovereignty, the situation poses an intriguing dilemma: could talks between Trump and Putin change the landscape? While some speculate that Trump might propose concessions from Ukraine to facilitate peace, Zelensky calls for increased pressure on Russia that would challenge Putin's resolve. As Finland emphatically backs Ukraine's aspirations, could other Western powers follow suit? The looming question now is, what will the upcoming meeting between Trump and Putin hold? In the shadows, another sinister game unfolds involving Germany. The international scene is volatile, and the stakes have never been higher. Will the world witness further aggression or a surprising breakthrough? The future of Ukraine hangs in the balance, and only time will reveal the outcomes of these pivotal discussions.